Welcome to my top 10 games of the week for the final week of the regular season, the college football season's rivalry week. I cannot wait. Rivalry edition of the top 10 games of the week here. I will be doing, don't be disappointed if you're just getting into these videos and now they're already done, but I'm going to be doing a bowl season preview. I'm going to go through every single bowl game and preview all of them. That's the goal anyway. And so don't be disappointed. Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss out on that. But here we go. Final video for the regular season top 10 games of the week. So, like I said, so many great games, about 10 of them on the outside, because I went through 20 games that I was trying to filter through and to figure out which ones were going to make it into the top 10. So, as always, we'll go through others just on the outside. Don't feel bad if your team didn't make it into the top 10, because these other games are still awesome, epic games to watch. And like I said, just really tough decisions on who made it into the top 10 and who didn't. So I'm going to go through the games themselves. I'm going to give you a little previews on them, talk about the when to watch them, where, time and TV channel give you a prediction on what ESPN and Vegas are saying, top player of the games for every single team as always, and then I'm also going to give you my over-under predictions as well. Over-under and my winners-losers predictions for each of these teams. So let's get right into it then. So others just on the outside. BYU versus USC, Texas A&M versus LSU, Arizona versus Arizona State. Love the interstate rivalry games. Anytime that two teams from the same state are playing, it's a game I'm going to watch. I love watching those rivalry matchups. So Arizona versus Arizona State, Penn State versus Michigan State. The Toilet Bowl for the regular season finale here, New Mexico State versus UMass. It's always great seeing two absolutely disastrous teams play each other, both tied for the worst record on the college football season, 1-10 for both of them. So that should be a fun one to watch. Wake Forest at Boston College. That could be a determiner for the ACC championship game. Clemson needs Wake Forest to lose. Georgia versus Georgia Tech. Liberty versus Army, my second team. That's going to be an awesome game. Really, just on the edge of putting them into the top 10 for this week. But I try to be as unbiased as possible in these matchups. They didn't make it in the top 10, but it is a awesome game to watch, and I am actually going to be at that game. I'm flying up to the game, so I'm actually disappointed. I'm going to miss a lot of these games because I'm going to be on the road driving to and from the Liberty game on Saturday. But luckily, a lot of great games on Thursday and Friday. All right, and then North Carolina versus NC State, and then UNLV versus Air Force. That's more of a Boise State Mountain West top game there, because Boise State is looking for UNLV to knock off Air Force. If they're able to do that, then Boise State will get into the Mountain West Championship game. Oh, got hiccups here down the stretch. All right, let's go right now into the top 10. So 10th overall here is going to be Fresno State at San Jose State. This is a great matchup because it's two teams, interstate teams here, Fresno State and San Jose State, obviously both from California. But this is big implications for the Mountain West, because if Fresno State is able to beat San Jose State and then Boise knocks off the Aztecs, then Fresno State will be in the Mountain West Championship game. Fresno State is favored by 7.5 points, given a 72.2% chance of winning. This game is on Thursday. This game is, Thursday. So while you're, cracking open a little bit of that post-Thanksgiving meal, desserts, sitting around the table or sitting around the television, watching your NFL games, make sure you have the San Jose State-Fresno State game on a screen as well, because that's going to be an impressive one to watch. Should be a very fun one, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on FS1. So I guess that one's not after. That's during or just before your Thanksgiving meals, depending on when you have those. All right, so Thursday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on FS1. All times are in Eastern Time. Top player of the game here is going to be Jake Haener, over 3,000 yards passing, one of the top quarterbacks in the nation, over 30 touchdowns. He has just had an incredible season for Fresno State this year. I think he's going to be, he will be leaving, unless he has 1 more year of eligibility, but I believe that he will be leaving here at the end of the season. Going to be one of those top quarterbacks that's looked at in the draft as a great choice for any team. So he's going to be the top player of the game here. I think that Fresno State will be able to ride through with Jake Haener's abilities here, and with so much on the line for Fresno. Yeah, San Jose State's trying to get bowl eligible. They're currently sitting at 5-6. I think San Jose State will be just on the edge of bowl eligibility this year. Crazy after the Spartans won the Mountain West Championship last season against Boise State, ends up coming in and not even getting bowl eligible this season. Just shows you what a crazy COVID year was, in the way that it became such an equalizer, and it brought certain teams down a peg and brought other teams up. It was crazy how that ended up working out. Anyhow, San Jose State, I think we'll miss out on bowl eligibility. Fresno State gets the win, and then I'm going to call over on the over-under. All right, number 9 here. Virginia Tech at UVA, the Commonwealth Cup. And in favor of the Commonwealth Cup and its prestigious, very proper proper place here. I'm going to do this section in my British accent here. So this section we got Virginia Tech versus UVA in the very prestigious Commonwealth Cup. It's going to be at 3:45 p.m. Eastern Time on ACC Network. This is going to be on Saturday. UVA is favoured by 7 points and given a 64.1% chance of winning. As far as top players of the game go here, we've got quarterback for Virginia Tech, Burmeister. He has been a great quarterback for Virginia Tech this year, a big part of their success and their winning ways. He's so far this year, he's thrown for 1,819 yards. 13 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. He's also run the ball, quite a running quarterback there for them here. He's run the ball for 406 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, Virginia Tech versus UVA, of course, Virginia Tech starting off the season with a great win over North Carolina. Really got them off going as the season's pulled on, really showed that's not as significant as a win as perhaps they thought it was at the beginning of the year. But, of course, Virginia Tech has finished off the season with a little bit of a rough start here with 5-6 now. They're trying to get to bowl eligibility. UVA, of course, sitting here, also a great quarterback there for them in Armstrong, but he's one of the most harassed quarterbacks in the nation. So UVA not quite in the right spot here to try and finish the season. They are 6-5. They're not really playing for very much necessarily in this one. And Virginia Tech is playing for bowl eligibility. So I believe that Virginia Tech will be taking the Commonwealth Cup this year and getting the win. I'm going to call under on the over-under and a win by Virginia Tech. So, all right, that's out of the way. We got the Apple Bowl here. Washington State at Washington. Number 8 overall for games of the week. 6-5 Washington State at 4-7 Washington. Both of these teams having very disappointing seasons compared to what they're used to, especially Washington. I mean, so bad that they fired their head coach. Yeah, they said it was because of the punching incident, but they were going to fire him anyway, and they were able to use that as a convenient scapegoat. So the Apple Bowl here, or the was the Applewood Bowl? The Apple Bowl. Anyhow, whatever it is, Apple Bowl here, 8 p.m. on FS1. It's going to be on Friday. I always enjoy this matchup. Living up in Idaho for a while, you're so close to Washington there. You're familiar with both these teams. Boise State has played them throughout the years. So familiar with both these programs. I love watching this matchup here. It's going to be Washington State's favored by 1 point, given a 63.7% chance of winning. Top player of the games. Really, it was hard to picking a top player of the game for this one because both of these teams just suck so much. But Washington State linebacker Jay Woods is going to be a good pick for this game. For 96 tackles, leads his team in tackles. 96 tackles, 6'1", 225 pounds. So a big playmaker there in the middle of the defense at the linebacker position. So as far as picking this game, it's an exciting game. I love watching it. I just don't think it's going to be as exciting as past years. Not a lot on the line for either team. So I think Washington State, the better team in this one, going to get the win and calling over on the over-under. All right, Boise State. Boise State versus San Diego State. Boise State 7-4 going up against 10-1, number 21 San Diego State. This is a major matchup for both programs because Boise State, if they're able to get a win and Air Force loses to UNLV, then Boise State will be in the Mountain West Championship game. If San Diego State loses to Boise State and Fresno State wins, then San Diego State will be out of the Mountain West Championship game. If they beat Boise State, they will be into the Mountain West Championship game. This is a rivalry game. It's a young rivalry. Teams have only played each other 6 times, but they are tied in that series 3-3. And there aren't any other teams in the Mountain West that have a tied series with Boise State. Boise State owns every other one. So this is a big game. It's a noon Eastern time on CBS on Friday. The top player of the game here, the favorites here is Boise State, given a 2.5 favorite, 2.5 favorites, and given a 61.4% chance of winning. So top player of the game here for me is going to be George Halani. Only 499 yards on the season, but he's been injured for most of that. But he's been healthy the last 3 games, and boy has it showed 3 100-plus yard rushing games. First time in his career he's had 3 back-to-back 100-yard rushing games. Shows what injuries have done to him throughout his career so far. But when he's on the field, he is a difference maker for this team. If you want to see my prediction for that video, I'm going to put a link in the description, but you're going to have to watch my Boise State versus San Diego State game preview to see my over-under on my game score prediction. All right, number 6 in the nation over here overall. Number 9, Ole Miss has a win against my second team, Liberty, this season. Going up against Mississippi State, who has this is a interesting game here for me, the Egg Bowl. I love this matchup. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN on Thursday. That's on Thursday, so make sure you note that. This is going to be another one competing for those Thanksgiving time slots for the NFL games. But I think it's worth it. This is going to be a very good matchup. Mississippi State favored by 1.5 points, given a 52.7% chance of winning. For me, this is has other reasons that I'm interested in this game as well, because it's a battle between one of my favorite coaches in Mike Leach and one of my least favorite coaches in Lane Kiffin. I think that Lane Kiffin is an opportunist who doesn't have any, he's all in it for himself, who doesn't have any loyalty to any programs and just does what's best for Lane Kiffin. Mike Leach, on the other hand, I think has a lot of loyalty to the programs that he's part of. He's a riot to watch in his press conferences, has a great personality, and I think he's really in it for the team, even though obviously his personality draws a lot of attention to himself. I don't think that he's in it for that attention specifically. So this is a battle between two coaches that I have an affiliation with, or that I like in Mike Leach. I've loved watching him when he was at Washington State. Love his air raid style. Very exciting to watch. And a coach that I really don't like, even though an Ole Miss win is better for Liberty, having lost to them. I will be rooting for Mississippi State in this one. However, I think that Matt Corral, who is the top player of the game here for this matchup, 3,100 yards passing, 19 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He is looking better. He was injured, of course, earlier, midway through the season against Auburn, and then didn't play his top. He didn't have that rushing ability, that maneuverability. He definitely looked gimpy against Liberty, even though they were able to get that win, and he had a lot of yards passing. Most of those were just kind of chuck it up kind of plays. He didn't look top notch, but he came back. He looked strong against Texas A&M. He looked strong last week, so I think that he is not necessarily 100%, but getting back towards that. And I think that ability that he has as a quarterback overall and moving towards being 100% again is going to get Ole Miss the win, though I will be rooting for Mississippi State, calling over on the over-under, and Ole Miss with the win in the Egg Bowl. All right, so number 5 overall here, number 23, Clemson at 8-3 at South Carolina 6-5. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, SEC Network. This is the Palmetto Bowl. My wife is a Clemson fan, and so I've been watching a lot of Clemson games this season, and while they started off absolutely terrible, they have gotten much better down the stretch, and with a big win against Wake Forest last week. Clemson favored by a lot, 11.5 favorites, given an 81% chance of winning. But it's also a South Carolina team that's been playing better here down the last season. Definitely better than they did last year. They have wins against Auburn, and they have wins against Florida. Florida, not a great program this season, obviously, but Auburn, a good school and with a good coach in former Boise State coach and Brian Harsin, who is struggling down the stretch here. But I definitely think that is still a good program that he is developing. It's just going to take him a couple of years of rebuilding and regrowth to get to the point they need to. But I still see that as a significant win for South Carolina. So do not count out the Gamecocks here. Could definitely go out and take Clemson for their money. Top player of the game, though, is going to be, for me, the Clemson running back, the sophomore, and it's not going to be Shipley, if that's what you're thinking about. This is actually the sophomore Kobe Pace. Only 532 yards and 5 touchdowns on the season, but against Wake Forest last week, he exploded onto the scene, 191 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. He looked great out there, and I think that he's going to be a key player for Clemson in this matchup. I think that Clemson will get the win, but I'm calling under on the over-under. All right, number 4 game of the week here, Oregon State 7-4 versus number 1 Oregon, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, the Civil War. And yes, I know it's not officially called the Civil War anymore, but that is ridiculous. This game has nothing to do with the American Civil War. Oregon didn't even participate in the conflict. This game, according to all historical records, has nothing to do with the Civil War. That wasn't on anybody's mindset. It's just the fact that it is a battle between 2 teams from the same state. And the American Civil War doesn't own the name Civil War. I mean, almost every country has had a civil war at some point. There's civil wars going on right now across the world. So Civil War has nothing to do necessarily with the American Civil War. This is a civil war because it is a battle between 2 intense rivals in the same state. It is pitting brother against brother. It is splitting households. It is a civil war. And every person with a rational, logical brain in their head and a true college football fans are going to fight against the wokeism and cancel culture that doesn't know what they're talking about and doesn't know their history. So Oregon State versus Oregon here in the Civil War, always one of my favorite matchups to watch, and this is going to be a little more competitive than it's been recently. Although I know Oregon State's gotten some surprise wins, I think they're going to be coming into this one with less of a disadvantage than usual. Oregon, of course, coming off of a bad loss to Utah that knocked them out of the playoffs, unfortunately, but Oregon State definitely with a chance in this one. I think that if Oregon had won against Utah, I'd be calling a win by Oregon State. I'm not going to do that today. I am going to kind of preempt this a little bit by saying I'm going to call Oregon with a win, but I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be good, but I think Oregon is going to be coming off that loss. They're going to be motivated to finish the season strong. Disappointed, but they, anytime you have a team that of this caliber that takes a loss, the next game you don't want to be that next team up because they're going to come after you. They're going to want to prove that that isn't who they are. They're going to have reassessed and reevaluated everything, and they're going to be playing from a much stronger position. So Oregon State versus Oregon. Oregon favored by 7 points, given a 73.5% chance of winning. Top player of the game here for me is going to be Oregon State running back B.J. Baylor, 1,200 yards rushing, 12 touchdowns. I think that he will be a big impactor on this game in trying to get Oregon State the win, but I think Oregon will take the win, calling over on the over-under. All right. Number 3, top 3 games of the week here, and we're almost done. Number 3, Alabama, 10-1 at Auburn, 6-5, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, CBS, the Iron Bowl for Saturday. Cannot wait for this game. I've been waiting for it all year. I wish that Auburn had finished the season stronger down the stretch. I really thought that a 9-win season was within their grasp, and it really was. I mean, if they hadn't taken the loss to South Carolina last week and then Mississippi State, especially with a win in a bowl game, the 9-win season would have been right there on their horizon, definitely attainable. So very unfortunate that they've finished the season the way they have with those 3 losses down the stretch. I think they are on a 3-game losing streak, and I think, obviously coming up against Alabama, it is really tough to win against Alabama, even if you're playing from home. I mean, Gus Malzahn was able to pull off a surprise upset there, of course, with that very, the memorable field goal return for a touchdown. But I don't think we're necessarily going to see that in this game, but I do think it's going to be close. I mean, Brian Harsin is a smart coach. He is able to pull out all the stops. He motivates his players. I love the way that he coaches. I love when he was a Boise State coach, and I love what he's been able to do at Auburn so far. Yes, they're not having the finish to the season that they wanted, but he is still a good coach and the right coach for this program. So if anybody out there could get a win for Auburn in this, it is Brian Harsin. It's just going to be tough to do. Alabama favored by almost 20 points, 19.5 points, given an 81.6% chance of winning. So, yeah, a really tough one to come in here and pull off the upsets, even though they do have the home field advantage, which should help. But the top player of the game, and really to determine on if Auburn has a chance in this one, is going to be Bo Nix. 2,294 yards passing, 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, not having the season that he wanted to. Has had sparks, has had glimmers of that player that freshman that he looked like he could be, that he could turn into. That raw freshman that we saw, all those years ago that we thought was going to be one of the top players in the country, and he just hasn't developed into that. And I think that Gus Malzahn is partially responsible for that and not developing him the way that he should have. So, unfortunately, here at Bo Nix, he has been very inconsistent, and as he goes, Auburn goes. So if Bo Nix can have the game of his life, and a lot of other things can go right, some turnovers, some good defensive performances by Auburn, then they could get the win in this one. But I do think Alabama's going to get this win. But I just don't see it being as big a point spread as everyone's saying. I think it's going to be closer, a lot closer than everyone is thinking in this one. I think Alabama might even struggle. Auburn might have a chance, but I do think Auburn eventually Alabama eventually does get the win in this matchup. All right, number 2 here in the nation, Oklahoma. It's Bedlam versus number 7 Oklahoma State, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. It's going to be Saturday. Oklahoma State is favored by 4 points, so they are not the higher. They are the higher ranked team because Oklahoma lost. That's right. Oklahoma State favored by 4 points and given a 54.4% chance of winning. So no one wants to go out on the line and call a straight victory here for Oklahoma State because it's always a close game. 2 top 10 teams playing it out, and I lived in Oklahoma for a while. I know how this rivalry goes. This is a major rivalry, one of my favorite rivalries to watch of all time. So this is going to be a great matchup. Top player of the game for me is going to be running back Jalen Warren, 1,078 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns. He hasn't had a great finish so far to the season, but he is the player who saved Oklahoma State's season, who completely revitalized that season early. 4 100-yard gains in a row right there in the middle of the season. Started off with a 218-yard performance against my Boise State Broncos, a game that Boise State, by the way, only lost by 1 point. So we're sitting here where this could be potentially, if Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma, especially depending on how they do it, but if they win in a handy enough fashion against Oklahoma, if they get this win against Oklahoma, and then Michigan, if they lose to Ohio State, depending on how Cincinnati plays, I mean, you could see Oklahoma State jump over Notre Dame. You could see them, and if Michigan loses, you could see them fall out from underneath them, and they could potentially replace Cincinnati there in the top 4. It is not without outside the realms of possibility that Oklahoma State here, sitting at number 7, playing a top 10 team, and probably going to play them again here in the Big 12 championship game, could shoot themselves, not like in the foot, but like propel themselves into the playoffs, which would be incredible. As a Boise State fan, that'd be awesome to know the team that you only lost by 1, and really you didn't lose to them, but the referees absolutely screwed you on that. And that is not biased there. The referees not overturned, but they blew a fumble return for a touchdown dead because they thought the player was down, and he clearly wasn't. Didn't let the play out, and then called it back. And then on review, he wasn't down, but there's nothing you can do at that point. Right towards the end of the game, Boise State ends up losing on what would have been a game-winning fumble return for a touchdown. So that is, referees absolutely cost Boise State the game. Sorry, sidetrack. Main point is, if Oklahoma State gets in the playoffs, that'd be pretty impressive for Boise State. You know, if they win here this game against San Diego State, they'd have 3 top 25 wins. They'd have only a 1-point loss to a top 4 team. I mean, they're 8-4. They've had some, 4 losses, all by a total point defeat by 23 points. So it's been some close games here. Boise State is this close to establishing themselves as the top team in the group of 5, one of the top teams in the nation again. But that's big for Boise State fans if Oklahoma State could get there. Main point here is that I think that Oklahoma State will get the win in this one. I'm calling over on the over-under and set up for a rematch here in the Big 12 championship game. All right, final game of the season here, or not final game of the season, but final game of my top 10 here is going to be number 2, Ohio State, at number 5, Michigan. The Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State is a hypothetical playoff knockout game, but this is a definite knockout game here. If Michigan beats Ohio State, they will jump into the top 4. If Ohio State beats Michigan, they'll maintain their slot here. Might even move up to number 1, which would be great. I don't think they'll unseat Georgia, but they could set their resume to potentially unseat them depending on what happens with the SEC championship game. This is going to be noon ABC on Saturday. This is, I believe their fans call it the game, unofficially at least. Or maybe it's official. I lived in Ohio for a while, but not a fan of Ohio State by any means. But I believe they call this matchup the game. But definitely going to be a good game because you have top 5 matchup here. Ohio State favored by 8.5 points, given a 61.8% chance of winning. Top player of the game here is going to be C.J. Stroud. He has been the difference maker for Ohio State. 3,468 yards passing, 36 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, especially the way he started the season, that slow start against Minnesota. Everyone was saying, C.J. Stroud, he's not the quarterback to move Ohio State in the future. Who they've got on the recruit, let's go after that. Let's see if we can get that amazing recruit that we brought in. Maybe he can be the starter. Well, C.J. Stroud has shown that he has that ability. I mean, he's been on such a hot streak for Ohio State. Just an incredible run here after those first 3 games towards the end of the season here. He's the difference maker. I would love to see Michigan get the win in here. I really do, after living in Ohio for 2 years. I cannot stand Ohio State fans in general. But I would love to see Michigan get the win here, but Harbaugh is going to harbor out like he always does. That should become a national verb here. If to harbor out means to totally whiff it in key moments. You might play great and put up a good show in other positions, but when it comes time for the big game, or the game, I guess in this case, when it comes time to win it, when you need to, on the line, you lose. And I think that Michigan will do that in this game. I think it'll be a close one. I think it'll be a good matchup. I'm going to call Ohio State with a win. I think they end up winning by over that 8.5 spread, especially after what they did to Michigan State. That was just disgusting, the way they demolished them. Absolutely destroyed them. I think it will be over on the over-under. All right, thank you for watching this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. It's not all Boise State stuff. It is Boise State focused, but I do other teams, and I'm going to be doing a bowl game preview for the bowl season. I'm going to go through every single bowl game. So make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching this video, and as always, go Big Blue.